I feel like the Trump presidency is over. I don't think anyone takes him seriously anymore. After the last few days, Tylenol causes autism, him speaking and just saying crazy stuff, going to the UN, angry about an escalator, angry that his own staff doesn't know how to set up a teleprompter, angry last night about ABC, about Jimmy Kimmel, about this, about that. He sounds like a 5-year-old child, just complaining about everything. I'm not getting my way. I'm not having any fun here. And when he's not getting his way and he's not having any fun, he just whines and complains. And it's just, who's going to take this guy seriously anymore? No one at the UN. Countries around the world, they don't take him seriously anymore. And who listens to him here? Someone that's talking about Tylenol causing autism, and he's talking like he knows what he's talking. I just think the president has jumped the shark. I think the president has jumped the shark already, and I think it's nothing but downhill from here, and I think it's over. Let me know what you think. Like and follow for more.
In a Truth Social rant today, Donald Trump called for UN workers to be arrested for causing him a, quote, triple sabotage yesterday at the UN General Assembly. He wrote an entire book here. I'm just going to read through the parts that matter. He says, not one, not two, but three very sinister events happened yesterday at the United Nations. The first one he's talking about is the escalator that came to a screeching halt, as he describes it, saying that it's amazing him and Melania didn't fall forward onto the sharp edges of these steel steps face first. He says this was absolutely sabotage, then notes an earlier post in the London Times where UN workers were joking about turning it off. He then calls for those people to be arrested without having any proof that they did anything wrong. The second part of the triple sabotage is the fact that his teleprompter stopped working, saying he thought to himself, wow, first the escalator event, and now a bad teleprompter. What kind of place is this? He goes on to brag about his speech, saying it's gotten fantastic reviews, which it hasn't. He made an embarrassment out of the United States on a global stage. But he says the third part of this sabotage was that the sound was completely off in the auditorium where the speech was made. He says, I'm sending a copy of this letter to the Secretary General and I demand an immediate investigation. But here's the thing, the Associated Press already reported what actually happened, and surprise, it was Donald Trump's team's fault. A US videographer accidentally hit the safety stop button at the top of the escalator, causing it to stop. And the teleprompter was being run by his own White House team, not the UN. As for the sound problem, world leaders could still hear what he was saying through interpreters' earpieces. This was nothing more than a technical difficulty. No one is to blame for that. But instead of taking any responsibility, Trump is spinning this into some grand conspiracy theory where he's the victim. He does this all the time. It's never just bad luck or human error. It's always a plot against him.
People are claiming that Donald Trump's escalator breaking today was not just a coincidence and that they might have been planning an attack on him. So you might have seen earlier today, Donald Trump arrived in New York at the UN, and when him and his wife tried to go up the escalator, it magically stopped working as soon as he stepped on it. Not to mention, he also was using the teleprompter during his speech, and it randomly cut off as well. As you saw when that escalator paused, him and Melania were both standing in the exact same place, standing still for a good few seconds without the Secret Service doing anything. So if somebody wanted to try and harm him, that would have been the time to do it. Now, from the Times, they are claiming that UN staff members joked about turning off the escalator when Donald Trump arrived and telling him they ran out of money, so he had to walk up the stairs. And because of everything going wrong at the UN, Donald Trump said in his speech, I ended 7 wars and never even received a phone call from the UN. These are the 2 things I got from the UN, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. But now the Secret Service has launched an investigation into the escalator situation to see if people should be criminally charged if they purposefully broke the president's escalator.
We have some news right now. Donald Trump just gave a speech to the United Nations General Assembly in which he was only allowed in 15 minutes. He went about an hour, and he told countries across the globe that they are, quote, going to hell. Here's what you missed from the speech. Throughout the speech, Donald Trump made it a priority to rail against climate change, saying that climate change does not exist, and essentially attacking countries for adopting green energy policies. He said that it was harder than expected to try to end the war in Ukraine because he hasn't been able to do so yet. He said that he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize and essentially that everyone believes he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. He talked about how he deployed the National Guard to Washington, D.C. to help clean up trash in the city. He attacked multiple European countries, throughout the continent over immigration and over climate policy. He attacked the United Nations for giving him a teleprompter that didn't work, and also for having him walk up an escalator that didn't work. Really a campaign-style speech for about an hour when he only had 15 minutes. As always, spread the word. Follow along to the update on all the news you need to know about. I'll have much more to come very soon, so stay tuned.
You know what I would rather do? I would rather go scuba diving in a septic tank. I would also rather eat tomatoes, which I hate. I would rather lick a toilet seat than to have that orange man in office to keep destroying America, because that's exactly what he's doing day after day after day. The lengths of the nasty, disgusting things I would do to get that man out of office, to save America, to save myself, to have to quit making fucking TikToks about him, because he is a ruthless, orange, incompetent bastard who keeps destroying America and destroying people's lives, also hurting the people in LA and all these other places, trying to take rights away, trying to get rid of the 14th Amendment, increasing our groceries, making companies lay people off, hurting America. Find me one motherfucking good thing that orange bastard's done. You can't tell me, because if you could, you would blow my fucking comments up, because you can't. You can't tell me one thing. One MAGA can't get on here and say a shit. They can't, because they're going to defend a criminal, they're going to defend a sexist, they're going to defend somebody that don't care about America. So are you any better than him? I don't think so.
Sweet baby Jesus, that man got up in front of the United Nations General Assembly, demanded the Nobel Peace Prize, and then complained how he didn't get the contract to redo the United Nations back in the day, all while referring to himself in the third person. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the President of the United States, who I call the Tangerine Menace, and today he was a menace to the world. I mean, when isn't he really? But he literally got up there, rambled on like Peepaw who forgot to take his meds, and complained that the United Nations didn't want to look like a tacky-ass third-rate casino back in the day. That was the correct choice. Dignified, understated. I'm glad you went the way you did, UN. But back to the whole Nobel Peace Prize, that is the one thing that is going to stick in that man's craw until the day he finally kicks it and goes meet Sky Daddy. Because, you know, he cannot stand the fact that Barack Obama has one and he doesn't. He also threw things out there like he ended 7 wars. Maybe one of them was in that mystical, magical land of Bijan that he mentioned a few weeks ago. Remember that one? Oh my God. And the trillions of dollars of investment. Our GDP is like 30 trillion. He's claiming we have more than half of that already promised to be invested in the United States. He is out of his freaking mind. Seriously, what would the reaction be if Joe Biden went up in front of the UN and did that? Tell me.
Trump just gave the worst speech an American president has ever given. Honestly, maybe the worst speech an American in general has ever given. And you're seeing America's allies pretty dumbfounded on how to proceed. But if you missed it, Trump complained that the UN wouldn't let him remodel the building. He said that everyone's country is going to hell. He complained about the mayor of London. He rambled about windmills. And he talked about clean, beautiful coal while insisting that he's really good at this stuff. And he also said, quote, "Together, let us defend free speech and free expression," which is kind of crazy for a guy that's doing what he's doing right now. And with this, you had the Australian foreign minister saying the speech was unsurprising. The Colombian president, a major non-NATO ally, calling for a criminal investigation into Trump. One senior diplomat at the UN said, "This man is stark raving mad. Do Americans not see how embarrassing this is?" You had a senior South Korean official saying, "We no longer consider the U.S. a North American country. It's clearly Central American in governance," which, if you don't speak diplomat, they're saying America is now corrupt and run by a ridiculous authoritarian. A Latin American official said that the speech confirmed that Trump's approach to the world is vibes rather than facts. You had the British media calling the speech deranged and a long and humiliating rant. They even went as far as to say that the world needs a strong anti-Trumpian alliance. German media said that Trump is getting crazier by the minute and said that the speech was bizarre. The French media called the speech staggering, violent, and incoherent. Canadian media, in a very polite way, said that Trump lives in another reality. And then others were generally saying that Trump feels like basically Brandon on dementia steroids now. But hey, we're all in the car together, so buckle up and follow to stay in the loop.
We are witnessing the collapse of Donald Trump's presidency. Why can I make that claim? Because we're watching the one thing, the only thing, the one superpower that Donald Trump has always fallen back on. that has kept him in power beginning to fall apart. And that thing has been his ability to keep tight control of the communications and messaging. In other words, the things that we see, we hear, and we read on a daily basis. But he's lost control of the messaging around Xi and Putin and Modi. He's lost control of the messaging around his own health. And now that that has entered the conspiracy sphere world, it's likely that that will continue to get worse for Donald Trump on an ongoing basis. And he's lost control of the messaging and communications around the Epstein files. And that issue will not go away until the victims feel that their issues have been satisfactorily addressed. And he's lost control of the messaging around tariffs because the lower courts said that his tariffs were illegal. And it's likely that the Supreme Court will uphold that decision, meaning that he's lost the messaging of the issue around tariffs for the next foreseeable future. He's lost control of the messaging around mass deportations because a lower court just halted mass deportations and said that Donald Trump cannot use the Alien Enemies Act for mass deportations. And it's likely that the Supreme Court will uphold that decision, meaning that he has lost control of the messaging around mass deportations. When you look at the big picture, Donald Trump has lost control, and you're witnessing a presidency spiraling into crisis after crisis, and that inevitably will lead to the end of Donald Trump and public confidence in Donald Trump. It's over. He doesn't know it's over, but it's over.
After Donald Trump delivered what I thought was the worst press conference of his entire term so far yesterday, I didn't really think the bar could get any lower until I woke up and saw Trump was speaking in front of the UN. And I knew that he was going to take the opportunity to do what he always does, and that is embarrass our entire country in front of the world. And he lived up to that. Donald Trump not only couldn't read most of the time, was melting down, but after he was laughed at, decided to attack world leaders. It was a disaster speech. Before we get into the moments in which Trump was laughed at and then started yelling at and attacking world leaders, I want to start with where he began whining about how he didn't get to build the UN building.
Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time, and which actually produced a far inferior product. And I realized that they did not know what they were doing when it came to construction, and that their building concepts were so wrong.
Are we being serious right now? I got to stop asking that question, because of course we are. He is not serious, but he is serious about this complaint. Donald Trump can only ever think about himself. He is speaking before all of the leaders of the world. And he's focused on a building he didn't get to build years ago. This is our president somehow. He is in complete cognitive decline. It has only somehow made his narcissism worse, which I can't even begin to understand. But the embarrassment that this is for us is painful to watch. That this is how everyone else perceives us around the world. That Donald Trump went in there today with his grievance, with his little crybaby attitude, and decided that he wanted to pretend that he was a tough guy while whining the whole time. But no, he did try to play off the tough guy act with this ridiculous nonsense right here.
I'm feeling a lot safer. Crime, we're getting crime down. And by the way, speaking of crime, Washington, D.C. was the crime capital of America. Now it's after 12 days, it's a totally safe city. Everyone's going out to dinner. They're going out to restaurants. Your wife can walk down the middle of the street with or without you. Nothing's going to happen. My people have done a fantastic job. And yes, I called in the National Guard, and the National Guard took care of business, and they weren't politically correct, but they took care of business. We got 1,700 career criminals out, brought them back to where they came from, the countries where they came from, or put them in jails. Washington, D.C. is now a totally safe city again, and I welcome you to come. In fact, we'll have dinner together at a local restaurant, and we'll be able to walk. We don't have to go by an armor-plated vehicle. We'll walk right over there from the White House.
President Trump just absolutely wiped the floor with the United Nations, delivering a speech to the General Assembly that embarrassed them with zero filter and 100% clarity. So, what did he actually say? Firstly, he addressed Europe, telling them, "Your countries are going to hell." And as someone who has the misfortune of residing in Europe, I completely concur. He slammed European leaders, saying, "Your countries are being ruined by illegal aliens pouring into Europe, and nobody's doing anything to change it because they're too concerned with being politically correct." Trump went on a tirade criticising the United Nations as a body, as they run on empty words, and empty words don't solve wars. He made reference to the fact that UN has not tried to end several wars, and they've been given the opportunity, including the ongoing war between Israel and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Trump said, sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help, adding that all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. He adds that the only thing that solves wars is action. And, as expected, he turned his attention to the abominable decision made by the UK, France, Canada, Australia and others to recognise the state of Palestine, saying this would be a reward for these horrible atrocities, of course making reference to the October the 7th, 2023 massacre. And of course, he's completely correct. Have quite literally celebrated it and called it the reward of October the 7th. I have not a single ounce of criticism for Trump's tirade, which was something of a well-needed lecture, in the midst of an influx of weak, short-sighted, dangerous leftist politicians destroying everything we know and love about safety, sanctity and democracy. Trump stood tall, Trump stood firm, and echoed the sentiment that I know so many of us are feeling but are struggling to vocalise right now. I have zero notes. This is actually what a leader looks like. Starmer, Macron, Albanese, Carney, take note. It might actually help you with your swiftly decreasing popularity.
All right, Trumpers, come and get me. Hey, listen, we got some breaking news. Are you ready for this? So there are impeachment articles coming through Congress right now. The Republicans are going to have to vote on it. The Democrats, this is their chance. This is our chance to stand up and say this man needs to be impeached. This came out yesterday. This is great. Donald Trump always gets impeached. He's the only president that continues to keep getting impeached. Everybody in the beginning back in November asked me when I talked about him getting impeached, how is it possible? How is it possible? When the Republicans get tired of him fucking around and finding out, this is how you get impeached, because they're the ones that brung this up. There was a few congresswomen that brung this up, and now it's moved to the Senate, and now the Democrats get to vote on it. So do the Republicans. Now, can the Republicans veto it? Can they shut it down? Sure they can. But this is the time for the Democrats to stand up and say, no, we are going to try to impeach him. He got impeached multiple times in between 2016 and 2020. And now we're back, and I hope he gets impeached. This is great. This could be a big win for the Democrats, and I'm so excited, and I hope he does get impeached.
Oh, Trump's new album just dropped. Are you excited for this release? Oh my god. Okay, let me translate for you because I speak Trumple Foreskin's language. Okay, here we go. Something like that. This is the biggest, babiest, snowflakiest thing I've ever seen a supposed grown adult say. A president, mind you. A real disgrace took place at the United Nations yesterday. Not one, not two, but three very sinister events. First, the escalator going up to the main speaking floor came to a screeching halt. It stopped on a dime. It's amazing that Melania and I didn't fall forward onto the sharp edges of these steel steps face first. It was only that we were each holding the handrail tightly, or it would have been a disaster. This was absolute sabotage, as noted by a days earlier post in the London Times that said UN workers joked about turning off an escalator. The people that did it should be arrested. And then, as I stood before a televised crowd of millions of people all over the world and important leaders in the hall, my teleprompter didn't work. It was stone cold dark. I immediately thought to myself, wow, first the escalator event, and now a bad teleprompter? What kind of place is this? I then proceeded to make a speech without a teleprompter, which kicked in like 15 minutes later. The good news is the speech has gotten fantastic reviews. Maybe they appreciated the fact that very few people could have done what I did. I had to walk up an escalator, you guys. I had to walk upstairs. That's embarrassing. I ad-libbed that part. And third, after making the speech, I was told that the sound was completely off in the auditorium where the speech was made. That world leaders, unless they used the interpreter's earpieces, couldn't hear a thing. The first person I saw at the conclusion of the speech was Melania, who was sitting right up front, and I said, "How did I do?" And she said, "I couldn't hear a word you said." This wasn't a coincidence. This was triple sabotage at the UN. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. I'm sending a copy of this letter. This is a Truth Social post, not a letter, you dumb fuck. I'm sending a copy of this letter to the Secretary General, and I demand an immediate investigation. No wonder the United Nations hasn't been able to do the job that they were put in existence to do. All security tapes for the escalator should be saved, especially the emergency stop button. The Secret Service is involved. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, I think he's doing well. It's an escalator, bruh. Calm down. God forbid you have to walk up steps. This little crybaby acts like he was thrown from the escalator and rolled around the room. I broke every bone in my body. Bitch, that happens on the daily at malls, if malls were actually still really a thing. Also, I'm confused because I thought you guys said, and he says himself all the time, that he doesn't need a teleprompter. So why was he so up in arms about the teleprompter not working if he doesn't even need to use it anyway? Right? Why was he using a teleprompter? Why? He doesn't need to. Only Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do that. But not Trump. No. So, again, why is he crying about it? Maybe because he does use them literally every single time and he still can't fucking do it correctly and he still can't read? Anyway, this fucker acts like he was sniped. It's called technical difficulties. They happen every day. Maybe instead of crying like a little toddler and complaining about it on the internet, maybe sack up a little bit, grow up a little, and just say, there was some snafus, but we got through it. No, he's gonna threaten to fucking sue the UN, sue Big Escalator. I think he's just upset now that there was no 10-year-old girl on the escalator. Oh, which reminds me, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. He's doing all of this, trying to distract you from the Epstein files that he's in. I guess he thinks that we'll somehow forget? No. This actually makes us remember more. So, good job. Jesus, I've seen less crying at a screening of The Notebook, for God's sakes. Man up, Trump.
Folks, enough is enough. For the third time in our nation's history, Donald Trump faces articles of impeachment because he's still a clear and present danger to our Constitution. He's abused his power, defied our courts, violated the First Amendment, and sold out our justice system for his own political gain. And he's deporting Americans with no due process and cozying up to billionaires like Elon Musk while stripping power from Congress. That's not leadership, that's tyranny. And let me be clear, silence from Congress is complicity. I'm running for Congress because we must draw the line. If Trump can violate the law with impunity, then democracy dies. It's time to stop being afraid of his base and start standing up for our country. I will not back down, and I will not sell out. Let's defend the Constitution. Let's impeach Donald Trump, and let's take back our democracy together. My name is Doug Hune. I'm a Democrat, congressional candidate in California's 3rd District. Please share this video, follow me, and donate to my congressional campaign. Link is down below and also my profile. Thank you so much for your support.
I know a lot of people talk about impeachment as an option for removing a president from office. While it is an option, what you need is a majority in both the House and the Senate who wants to remove him, because the House brings the impeachment charges against him, but the Senate actually runs the trial. So back in 2019 and 2021, when he was impeached, the House had the majority of people who didn't want him, and the Senate had the majority of the people who did want him. So after the House fought the impeachment charges, and it went to trial in the Senate acquitted him of all the charges, because you only need a simple majority. It's not like 2/3 or 3/4 or anything like that. You only need 51% versus 49%, right? So during the 2026 elections, you don't necessarily have to vote blue or independent if you're in a red state or a red county. Just vote for people who don't like Trump. You're welcome.
It never ceases to amaze me just how obsessed liberals in Canada are with Donald Trump. These people will accuse everybody who disagrees with them for oftentimes incredibly valid reasons as just being this insane Trump supporter person, as though one, that's even a bad thing, he's a democratically elected president, or two, that even has anything to do with literally anything happening in our country, which it doesn't. And the real irony there is that they and only they are the people who are obsessed with Donald Trump. That guy is rent-free in every conversation, every insult, every thought in their brain. It is deranged. Canada is currently sinking in our own disasters caused by the Liberal government, crushing housing prices, record debt, crime surges, our GDP lagging behind, or perhaps our healthcare nightmares, skyrocketing living costs, unemployment rates, when you're so busy just projecting all of these failures onto Donald Trump. But I'm a traitor because I read and I know that Donald Trump is not the problem. Even Mark Carney admitted that in the election. He said, these problems have existed long before Donald Trump, but yeah, Donald Trump. This is so much deeper than just hypocrisy. It is full-blown delusion. So perhaps you could spend less time chanting about how much you hate America and more time demanding that your actual government shows up.